Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Digitally. As you know, we've been spending time on AI and data in the enterprise. And indeed, AI will be one of the largest disruptors we've ever seen in the workplace as it reshapes how we deliver value, how enterprises operate. And as a result of that, the future of work itself will change. It'll evolve. What people work on, how teams work together, and really what skills will come to be valuable in the future. And indeed, they'll be very different from where they are today. And that leads us to two very critical areas to discuss: the reskilling of the existing workforce and then preparing for the next generation of incoming employees. And if you were here last time, as you know, we discussed that first topic. So I wanted to pick up the conversation exactly where we left off last time, and from here on go into the second topic. How do we go deeper into educating the next generation of employees? And that's our topic for today. So I've actually spent quite a bit of time looking at universities and the programs around the US at least, and how they're adapting, how they're transforming, how they're driving sort of the next generation of education, if you will. The programs they're launching, how they're blending classroom experience, partnerships with the industry, and how fast the curricula itself is changing. There's actually a lot of energy and momentum, more than I had realized. And so I'm really pleased with the discussion today, because today we will unpack what's working on the front lines. And to do that, I'm joined by Ben Hescott. He's Senior Associate Dean of Computer Sciences at the Northeastern University in Boston. He'd recently joined one of my think tank meetings. As you know, I'm at the Executive Technology Board that I chair, and he joined a meeting and led a discussion on how the university and how the education is changing itself to really change and drive the transformation we're looking to see. And I was struck by the pace of innovation that he's driving within the academia and the university. And so, Ben, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you. Thank you very much, Sanjay. Super excited about the conversation. Thank you.
I love it. Ben, we're going to start right at the top. I have a little bit of tunnel vision. I'm on the operator side, and I'm an employer. I'm on the other side of the spectrum. And so sometimes I miss this completely. So I want you to actually help us think through, from the lens of a student, from one of your students in your college, how are they thinking about the work of the future, and how should they get prepared for it?
Thank you for that. And so one of the things that you said earlier, too, you were talking about how this is the biggest disruptor for industry. So many of us in industry are sitting there looking at this as a disruption. And students don't think about it that way at all. They're not thinking about this as a disruption. They're thinking about this as just another tool. Most of them have actually been using different technologies throughout the entire time, and this is just assistive. So this is so native for them that they're instead just demanding that they're actually going to get a job, that it's worth it for them to go out into higher ed, and that higher ed is going to deliver on the promise of that future for them.
It's remarkable in what you said that this current set of students are the first generation of digitally AI native students and employees of the future. And you're absolutely right that their exposure to, their experience with, frankly, their expectations of AI in the work they do today in your university, but really in the future across the workplaces they come to be in, is completely different. But that changes a lot of things. That changes what we need to do as employers, but more importantly, that changes how universities deliver to the need of the future. And so talk to us a little bit about, from that lens of a student to your lens as a professor and as an associate dean, what is changing, what needs to change in universities and the education space?
Thank you. And when I talk to students, right, one thing that they keep bringing in is they do want to be educated, but they don't want to be educated the same way before. They have, right, if we think about the students of today, they have information coming at them at all times, and they know that, and they don't need necessarily for me to get up in front of them and lecture at them for an hour and a half on some particular area. They want to work. They want to start their own companies. They want to be the future entrepreneurs. They want to go out and do research. They want to be able to do these experiences. And universities now need to be able to rethink the way that we do this. We need to actually meet the students where they are. We need to be giving them these experiences that they need. So it's not just a curricular change. I mean, you started to say this. We of course need to be able to sort of change our curriculum. We've got to actually start thinking about the way that we deliver content. We've got to think about adding in new AI in every single sort of context. It's not just within computer science that we're going to be seeing sort of the AI, and it is disruptive for universities, the AI disruption in the curriculum. but it's really kind of more about the way that we kind of work with students and we assess students. I mean, one of the things that I'm always talking about, and others have mentioned this too, is we can't think about the product and sort of the product that the student creates. We need to think about the process that the student is going through. And so when we think about a sort of paradigm shift at a university, we should be really thinking about what are the sort of things that we're assessing on the student for their process. How are they working as a team member? How are they actually going about this? I mean, one of the things we talk about at Northeastern all the time is putting forward contextual agility. And so students really need to be out there in the world and applying their knowledge in a lot of different areas. That's the human part that's never going to go away, no matter what happens with AI.
That is amazing, actually. You know, a long time back when I went to college and then I subsequently came out, I used to say that, you know, education was designed for the time that information wasn't immediately available. And of course, the internet changed all of that. And so the education had to evolve to a point where, you know, you weren't memorizing tables and the like that I did when I was in college and or school, and instead were thinking about how to apply this. But literally, I think with AI, I think it's going to move to the next level of that evolution. And you're talking about critical thinking, you're thinking about contextual agility, and you're talking about process, not the product. So the ability to learn how to get to an answer is almost more important than knowing the answer, because the answer might change, the question might change. But if you learn the critical ability to think through that, then you are forever valuable in the changing work of the future. That's amazing. How are students adopting to this idea?
They're fast. They're way faster than we are, right? I mean, I think a lot of times I think about my friends that are in different departments and they're still sort of saying, all right, go write a 10-page paper in this space. But I was just meeting with a faculty member earlier today and they were like, Claude wrote this. I didn't write it. So we won't really be thinking about it in the same way. We're going to be thinking about specific competencies, putting them into practice, watching that. You know, it's almost like we should really be thinking about this as, you know, we need to get students out into the world, watch them correct. Some of my friends talk about this is like when you're learning a sport and you're giving that feedback, right? So you really need that critical feedback right then, but when they're doing the actual skill in the bigger sense, again, like AI can answer it for us, right? And as you said, the process is going to be how you got to the answer is going to be way more interesting than the answer itself.
Okay, so we started with critical thinking. We started with contextual knowledge. We talked about learning in the context of work and real world.
Yep.
That applies to education at large. At Northeastern and the program that you direct, how are you bringing that to life?
Yeah, in a couple different ways, right? So you've heard me say this all the time, right? So higher ed really needs to prove its worth. And the only way that we're going to do that is in partnership with industry. We cannot be an Ivy Tower. We've got to rip it down and allow both industry. We've got to get our students out into the industry. And this can't be sort of just in this sort of cycle of, oh, I'm going to teach you in the classroom. Then you're going to go get an internship over the summer. Then you're going to come back to the classroom. It's got to be way more permeable. And it's got to go both directions. You know, we need to have our students out there in the workforce, but we actually have to have our industry partners coming in and working with us. So giving us feedback, right? Co-designing classes, right? We're working with a large company right now to be able to co-design a particular class. The students would then actually, after this class, learning specific skills and competencies, go work for that company for 6 months. You know, we've got at our London campus, you know, you got to visit, you saw, we have a startup studio. So we've got industries that are coming in and they're on campus building up their companies, but then also as part of the deal with working with us is they're actually giving projects for our students. They're meeting with our students. They're giving their time and energy to our students. So again, that student, to get contextual agility, we have to go to many different contexts. And so we try different workplaces in different forms. So just something that we really are trying to take, it's a long journey, but we're trying to take experiential beyond that traditional co-op or that traditional internship and really sort of blend it through a bunch of programs to be able to sort of benefit students and really get them ready for the workforce.
When we last met, we were in London. I was struck by, and thank you again for bringing me into the campus and giving us a little bit of a tour. And I was struck by the incubator and the incubation work that's happening in concert with the university. And what an amazing opportunity for participating students to get involved in incubation and new technologies, emerging tech, and so forth. And it's just fantastic to see. I think the point you made about reinventing education is so true, though. And in many ways, the point you're making about blending work and learning from work is super important. And you've got a program in place for that. You've done this for a few years now. Where are we at in that journey? Where are you at in the journey? Have you gotten
I think it's funny. With Northeastern has been doing co-ops for over 100 years, but I think it's time for us to double down on this, to be able to sort of look at this. And AI is part of the reason to do this, but it's also sort of, as AI disrupts the tech field, I think it's important for us to really watch this and realize, okay, we need to make sure that we're delivering students that you want to hire. Like, that's the thing for me, right? Then, we go back to that student perspective in the very beginning. Students are going to college because they want to get a job. They're thinking about the next step. They want good paying jobs. They want to start their own company. They might want to be a research scientist. If we're not preparing them, then we haven't given the value to that higher ed. And so where are we on the journey? So we've come a long ways, in the sense that I think, again, we've got a great co-op program, but there's some really exciting new things. We've got a new co-op consultancy program, these tech incubators that we're bringing to our campuses. We've got a global university system. You were on our London campus. As you know, we got the Seattle campus, and we're based in Boston. And I think as we think about that, the students moving around this as they build their own personal networks, they're also, again, doubling down on that contextual agility to be able to sort of see, all right, this is how it's done in Seattle. This is how it's done in Vancouver. This is how it's done in London. Seeing the connections that are the same, seeing the differences, those are some skills that students are going to need in the future, right? In a global workforce, in a global environment, when technology is going to only make us all closer and faster. So I think that's really going to be. So where am I? We're about halfway. We've got some work to do, and I'm really excited about that work. And again, I think it's more about tearing down the walls and really getting industry partners to start really thinking with us and changing the way that we teach our students.
I love your humility. I mean, look, I know your program a little bit, as I had a chance to work with you, and I tell you, you're actually driving and leading this effort. What we've got going on here is a complete reimagination of how education is delivered. We've got a significant investment around these kind of learning opportunities in a contextual setting, as you said, internationally across the world, in different domains and different disciplines, and with deep engagement of the industry. And in many ways, I still remember one of the first times I met you. I think the first time I met you, you made this comment to me, and you said, Sanjay, education can no longer, or universities can no longer be the centers of learning, which is what we've all used to and how we think about colleges. We're actually the facilitators of learning. And I looked at you quizzingly, and you said, it's actually because the learning's in the real world, all we can do is facilitate it. And I thought that approach and that humility and kind of this focus on actually building the next generation of our workforce was just amazing. As we bring this to a close, I want to close on a high note. Tell us a little bit about either the results of your program, or tell us a little bit about how students are engaging with it. Either way is fine.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, one of the things that we look at is we think about what is our promise as a higher ed institution. And one of the promises that I make to students is that you're going to have real work experiences before you actually graduate. So and we can actually safely say that 95% of our students have had a real work experience before they actually graduate. So that's just bar none.
Amazing.
Like, that is the bottom line thing we have to deliver on. And we do. But it's so much more than that. It's so much about the resumeable experiences. It's about being in a student group. So my real promise is not only will you get that work experience, but it's to break down, as you said, that barrier, to facilitate learning, whether that's on campus or off campus. That's the promise we have. And we're doing our best to deliver it.
Well, you're very humble, but it's amazing to hear you, and the work you're doing is truly, truly inspirational. I love everything we're doing. I want to just mention to my audience that there's a way that people can engage. I know you would welcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We are. We're interested in projects. We're interested in working students. Like, we're interested in working together. I want to hear from people about the skills that they want to see in their workforce. It's a conversation. Right? It's not an ivory tower. It's a conversation for us to be able to sort of facilitate this for our young people.
Ben, thank you for joining us. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.